Well, we begin with a federal judge putting the brakes on another key part of President Trump's agenda. It's somewhat of a trend these days. This time, the issue is requiring proof of citizenship before registering to vote. In a partial ruling, D.C. Judge Colleen Collar-Cotley ruled that Trump does not have the power to enforce such a regulation on national elections. She wrote this: "Our Constitution entrusts Congress and the states, not the president, with the authority to regulate federal elections." Consistent with that allocation of power, Congress is currently debating legislation that would affect many of the changes the president purports to order. Indeed, that legislation is called the SAVE Act. It's already passed through the House, awaiting a vote in the Senate. But remember, it's issues like election integrity that put President Trump back in the White House. A Gallup poll, look at this. It's hard to get this many people to agree on anything, but here we are. This Gallup poll found that 83% backed a proof of citizenship requirement when registering to vote. Trace, I want to break this number down a little further, because one thing we constantly hear from the left is we can't do voter ID. It would disenfranchise voters of color. They make this argument. Democrats, they say, would not be on board with this. However, Gallup found otherwise. Look at this. Democrats, 66% of Democrats approve of this citizenship measure, maybe not the executive order, but the principle of it. And with people of color, 76% approve of looking at citizenship when someone goes to register to vote. It kind of demolishes the entire argument of the left.
Yeah, and it really, you go back to even with the Georgia voting law, you talk about these things and you have all of this outpouring of people who are minorities, women who they constantly cite saying, oh, no, this is going to be bad for minorities and women. Because why? Because they don't have the skill set to be able to present ID, to be able to vote, to be able to kind of prove their citizenship before they vote. That's always the same excuse. And the people have come out time and time again saying, we're fine. We will be fine. We're going to make the ID. As far as this case goes, the judge, not surprising. I mean, she's a Clinton appointee. She has ruled against Republican administrations before. George W. Bush ruled against Dick Cheney. So she's got this history of doing this, so it's not surprising. Is it right or wrong? We'll find out later on as it goes through the court process. But what is wrong is the Democrats constantly arguing the same argument, regardless if it's the Georgia voting law or this law, which is some people just can't handle it.
Kennedy, one of the interesting things is these judges' rulings, part of me feels like a part of the administration relishes them, because what they do is they succeed at putting the left on the opposite side of common sense. So this judge, she has succeeded in getting the left to argue against proving citizenship. So they're with the 20%. On Kilmar Abrego Garcia, they have succeeded. The judge may have ruled against Trump at the federal level, at that district court level, but nevertheless, they've succeeded in putting Democrats in a place where they're defending a guy who his wife said abused her, among other accusations that are out there.
Yeah, and this is what happens when you force the issue. You force the other side to take a stand. Mm-hmm. And, you know, when you take a strong of an issue in terms of requiring proof of citizenship in order to register to vote, then you're forcing the other side to say, no, it's a free-for-all. Anyone can vote from anywhere in the world, regardless of how long they've been in this country or whether or not they hate this country. And, you know, that's a bad look for Democrats. It's not a nuanced, sophisticated decision, and it's also one I don't think sells really well to their voters. You know, they also look at the progressive members of Congress who go to El Salvador to meet with Mr. Abrego Garcia, and they're like, that's who you're championing? Like, sure, you know, there's an argument for due process. And I actually didn't disagree with what the judge said about maybe we let this go through Congress, and if it's codified into law, as it should be under the legislative branch, that's fine. But taking a political stand against it is really taking a stand against people who want a champion for themselves, their families, and their communities.
You know, Lydia, interestingly, though, the judge here, and this may be, you know, a little bit of nuance how you get this done. Jonathan Turley made the point that the Constitution says that states determine the manner, the place of elections. However, legislation might be the strongest way for Trump to get this through. You have the SAVE Act. There's congressional delegation of authority to the executive branch. It's the safest way to do this and would be victorious all the way to the Supreme Court for sure if they were to do that. So we'll see if they do it. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. There's a lot of pressure on senators when you have 80% saying this. You're going to side with the 20%?
Yeah, it's such a great point. You know, two things can be true at once. I think this judge can be right, like as Jonathan Turley is pointing out, that this ability to regulate the elections really is reserved for the states and Congress. So you're right. This puts a lot of pressure. The SAVE Act has already passed the House. It's gone over to the Senate. Some Democrats actually voted to pass it out of the House, speaking to the incredible pressure. And it's just simply common sense. And what we're hearing from Democrats who are opposing this measure, they're raising a lot of concern or trying to make a lot of hay about we're going to disenfranchise voters and not everybody is able to secure their documentation to establish that they are an actual citizen. I would say to that two things. If that is true, then maybe we can have a concerted effort in this country to make sure that people are able to access their documents to establish their citizenship. But number two, there's actually something that's much more deep-seated and concerning, which is there is a good faction of the left that is not just trying to stick up for those who are not able to establish their citizenship. They're actively trying to make it easier or make it available at all for non-citizens to vote in this country. And you can look no further than New York City, where we are right here. Just last month, our state Supreme Court here in New York set aside an ordinance that the New York City Council had passed to allow non-citizens to vote here in the city in municipal elections. It would have, if that had stood, it would have allowed something like 800,000 non-citizens to vote in city elections. So there's definitely an effort. So this move by the Trump administration is spot on. They need to have a law.
Yeah, without question. Tommy, you have this D.C. judge, and you also have another judge, this one not a Clinton appointee, an Obama appointee, who is saying, no, President Trump, you can't pull federal funding from sanctuary cities. I think Trump's on pretty firm legal footing here. Nevertheless, I wanted to pull up the plaintiffs in this lawsuit because they have something in common. You have Oakland, you have San Jose, you have San Diego, you have Portland, you have New Haven, you have Minneapolis, you have St. Paul, you have Santa Fe, and you have Seattle. These are places hardly known for law and order. And here they are suing, saying, we're proud of being sanctuary cities. Don't take our money away.
They weren't proud of it, though, when the illegal aliens were being bused to their cities and their states. I seem to remember there being kind of an uproar in these sanctuary cities when Governor Abbott, Governor DeSantis, and others decided they didn't want to deal with the open borders, so they were going to pass along the privilege of harboring illegal aliens to the places that have said that they want to harbor illegal aliens. Poor Trace, a lot of those cities were in California.
Right.
All of them, like, yeah, it's a litany of...
Your state is being represented well, and Gavin Newsom's going to have to answer for that as well when he runs in 2028. We all know that he's going to, and as are the other leaders of the Democrat Party that are standing up for non-citizen voting, or at least standing against proof of citizenship, that are standing against the defunding of sanctuary cities. The American people made it very clear in November of 2024. Not only do they not want an open border, they don't want millions of illegal aliens to seek refuge in this country. That has been proven. So once again, this administration is smart. There's going to be legal challenges. They already know it. Every time they do something that seems common sense, they're going to be challenged for it. But at least they're starting the conversation. They're putting the pressure on Congress to actually have to do something. President Trump is saying, I'm going to do as much as I can, but you're going to have to go the rest of the way. The American people demanded it. Now it's time for our representatives and our senators to take it the distance. We're counting on you. President Trump can only do so much.
I was thinking of you, Trace, as that list came up. I was like, these are some of your friends and neighbors on the West Coast.
Woo,
and
Santa
Kennedy,
Monica.
too.
Yeah.
Santa Monica.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.